Drunk tourists mock royal guard, they instantly regret it. The evening air in London carried a crisp chill, but that did nothing to deter the steady stream of tourists still wandering around Buckingham Palace. Streetlights cast a golden glow on the grand gates, and the imposing figures of the royal guard stood as still as statues, their red coats and tall bearskin hats cutting a striking contrast against the historic backdrop. Among the visitors was a group of 5 American tourists, their laughter rising above the quiet murmurs of others. They had clearly enjoyed a few too many pints at a nearby pub, their faces flushed, their steps slightly unsteady. At the front of the group was Ryan Carter, a 35-year-old businessman from Texas, loud and full of bravado. His best friend, Jake, a stocky guy with a booming laugh, clapped him on the shoulder. "Dude, I've seen these guys online," Ryan slurred, pointing at one of the royal guards standing just inside the gate. "They don't move. No matter what you do, they just stand there like robots. It's crazy." The rest of the group chuckled, encouraged by the alcohol buzzing through their systems. One of them, Eric, pulled out his phone, grinning. "Let's test it. Huh? This would make a great video. Bet we can make him blink at least." Ryan smirked. The idea of testing one of Britain's most famous traditions seemed hilarious in his intoxicated state. "Yeah, let's do it," he said, straightening his jacket like he was about to give a grand performance. As they stumbled closer to the guard, other tourists began to take notice. A British couple nearby exchanged disapproving glances. A group of elderly visitors, standing a few feet away, frowned but remained silent, watching how the situation would unfold. Ryan walked right up to the guard, stopping just inches away from his rigid stance. His breath, thick with alcohol, filled the space between them. He waved a hand in front of the guard's face, grinning wildly. "Hello, sir. Lovely evening, isn't it?" he said in an exaggerated British accent. His friends laughed behind him. The royal guard did not react. His face remained impassive, his eyes fixed straight ahead. Jake nudged Ryan. "Dude, go closer. See if he even notices you." Ryan obliged. He inched forward, his antics growing bolder. He began to mimic the guard's posture, puffing out his chest and pretending to stand at attention. "I mean, come on," he said, loud enough for nearby tourists to hear. "This guy just stands here all day? We got security guards back home doing way more than this." Still, the guard did not move. But Ryan wasn't done yet. He stepped even closer, too close. And that's when things started to change. Encouraged by his friends' laughter, Ryan grew bolder. He turned back to them with a smug grin, arms outstretched like he had just put on a successful comedy act. "See? Nothing. This guy's made of stone." The tourists around them were no longer just curious onlookers, many had begun to frown, some whispering among themselves. A British father standing nearby with his young son shook his head disapprovingly. An elderly woman muttered something about how Americans never know when to stop. But Ryan didn't notice. Or, more likely, he didn't care. With a dramatic flourish, he spun back toward the guard and waved his hands inches from his face. "Hello? Anybody home?" he teased. When that got no reaction, he started hopping from foot to foot, mimicking a boxer. Maybe he needs a little action to wake him up. His friend Jake doubled over in laughter. "Dude, if this were in the US, security would have tackled you by now." Eric, still recording, encouraged Ryan. "Give him something really good, man. The internet's gonna love this." That was all Ryan needed to hear. He stepped even closer, dangerously near the guard's rifle, and started making exaggerated marching movements. Then, in a particularly audacious move, he mimicked a fake British accent again and saluted dramatically. "Long live the Queen, oh wait, I mean the King," he said, breaking into a fit of laughter at his own joke. A sharp gasp rippled through the watching crowd. Ryan didn't realize it yet, but he had crossed an unspoken line. The guard remained still, but something had changed. His grip on his rifle tightened, his knuckles turning white. His jaw, previously locked in an impassive stance, subtly clenched. Jake noticed it first and nudged Ryan. Bro. I think you should chill." But Ryan, too caught up in his own antics, ignored the warning. "What's he gonna do, Jake? Arrest me for bad jokes?" He turned back to the guard and smirked. "Come on, man. Just blink or something. Give me a sign you're still alive." And then, without thinking, he did the unthinkable. He reached out and tapped the barrel of the guard's rifle. The moment his fingers made contact, the air itself seemed to snap. And that's when everything changed. The moment Ryan's fingers grazed the barrel of the guard's rifle, the entire atmosphere shifted. It was as if a silent alarm had been triggered, one that only those who truly understood military discipline could hear. The laughter from his friends died down instantly, replaced by an uneasy tension that rippled through the crowd. For the first time, the Royal Guard reacted. He didn't flinch. He didn't step back. But the change was unmistakable. His posture stiffened even more, his grip tightening on the rifle as if anchoring himself in place. His chest expanded with a slow, controlled breath, as though bracing for the next move. Jake's eyes widened. "Dude, you need to back off. Now." Ryan's grin wavered, but only for a second. His inebriated brain struggled to process what had just happened. He let out a nervous chuckle, attempting to play it off. "Oh, come on, guys. He's fine. Look, he's not even." Thump. The guard stomped his boot down hard, the sound ringing out across the courtyard like a gunshot. Several onlookers jumped. A woman let out a small scream, and even Jake instinctively took a step back. The force of the stomp sent a clear message. Line crossed. Ryan's face paled slightly. His confidence, which had seemed unshakable just moments ago, flickered. From the sidelines, an elderly British veteran, his blazer adorned with military medals, shook his head. "That boy just made a serious mistake," he murmured to his companion. Meanwhile, the rest of the crowd had gone completely silent. Even those who had initially found Ryan's antics amusing now seemed to understand that things were escalating beyond a harmless joke. Parents pulled their children closer. A group of teenagers lowered their phones, realizing that what was happening wasn't just another tourist prank, it was a confrontation with a trained soldier. Despite the warning, Ryan let out a nervous chuckle. Okay, I get it. Big, scary soldier. Still not talking though, are ya?" His voice wavered slightly, betraying his growing discomfort. But instead of stepping away, he made his final, most reckless mistake. He took another small step forward, just inches from the guard's face. And then, with the arrogance of a man who had never faced real consequences, he spoke his last foolish words. "What are you gonna do about it?" That was it. The moment those words left Ryan's lips, the guard moved. The moment the words left Ryan's lips, "What are you gonna do about it?" the Royal Guard exploded into action. In a single, precise motion, The guard stomped forward, closing the already small gap between them, his polished boot hitting the ground with a force that seemed to shake the air itself. His rifle, once held motionless at his side, snapped up into a ready position, the barrel pointing slightly downward but unmistakably firm. And then, he roared. "Stand back!" His voice was not human. It was an order, a command, a war cry all in one, the deep, controlled projection of a trained soldier accustomed to being heard over the chaos of a battlefield. The sound of it tore through the stunned silence, sending a physical jolt through everyone within earshot. Ryan jumped back instinctively, his cocky grin collapsing into a look of pure shock. His hands, which had been moving so confidently just moments before, froze mid-air. His intoxicated brain struggled to process what had just happened, but his body reacted first, his legs tensed, his posture shrank, and for the first time that evening, he looked genuinely afraid. The crowd's reaction was immediate. Some people gasped. Others stumbled back in reflex, gripping their phones tighter. The elderly British veteran, who had been watching from the sidelines, nodded in approval. "That's the discipline of the King's Guard," he murmured, his voice tinged with respect. Ryan, still stunned, staggered backward. "Whoa, man. Chill. It was just a joke," he sputtered, holding his hands up. But it was too late for excuses. The Royal Guard remained locked in position, his piercing stare drilling into Ryan with the intensity of a soldier who had been trained to neutralize threats. A new energy rippled through the air. Ryan might have been a drunk tourist, but in this moment, standing in front of a trained military professional, he was no longer in control. The power dynamic had shifted entirely. Jake, still gripping his friend's shoulder, hissed urgently, "Dude, back up. Now." But before Ryan could fully recover, before his friends could drag him away, a new force entered the scene. A sharp voice cut through the tense air. "Security. Step away from the guard, now." From the edge of the courtyard, two British security officers were approaching fast, their eyes locked onto Ryan. And that's when he realized, this was no longer just a joke. He was in real trouble. Ryan's heart slammed in his chest. The sound of stomping boots against the stone pavement echoed as two uniformed British security officers pushed through the gathered crowd, their eyes locked on him with laser focus. The weight of the situation finally hit him. This was no longer a silly prank. His drunken haze was evaporating fast. "Sir, step back from the guard, immediately," one of the officers barked, his tone leaving no room for argument. Ryan threw up his hands, stumbling a step backward. Whoa, I was just messing around. Didn't mean any harm." His voice cracked slightly, his bravado now completely gone. But the officer wasn't having it. "You interfered with an active duty soldier. That is an offense under UK law." Jake and the rest of the group exchanged nervous glances, their drunken excitement turning into cold fear. Tourists nearby watched in silence, some still recording, others shaking their heads in disbelief. Lisa, a middle-aged woman standing with her teenage son, whispered, "Serves him right. Some people just don't understand respect." Ryan, still swaying slightly, laughed nervously. "Come on, man. It was just a joke. He's fine, look, he's still standing there." The second officer took a step closer, his expression stone cold. "This is your final warning. You can either walk away now, or you can come with us." Ryan's stomach dropped. He looked at his friends for help, but they were already backing away, trying to distance themselves from the trouble. Even Jake, who had encouraged him just minutes earlier, muttered, "Bro. Just walk away." Ryan swallowed hard. Then, without another word, he turned and stumbled away, his face burning with embarrassment. The security officers watched him closely, ensuring he was leaving the premises. As he disappeared into the dispersing crowd, the tension in the air finally began to ease. The Royal Guard never moved again. His rifle remained in place, his gaze steady, unshaken, unwavering, unbothered. But to those who had witnessed it, he had won. One of the British veterans from earlier turned to his friend and chuckled. "Still think they're just standing there for decoration?" His friend grinned. "Not one bit." The tourists slowly returned to their sightseeing, their murmurs filled with newfound respect for the discipline and authority of the King's Guard. And Ryan? He would be leaving London with a lesson he would never forget.